Hello again, and before we get started, just want to say thank you very much to Ridiculous Badger for joining the Patreon, actually as of the day I'm recording this, which is probably going to be several weeks later when it gets posted. But yes, thank you, Badger, for joining the Patreon. For anyone else who's interested, the Patreon is available for, I have a single tier, $1 a month gets you early access to new videos, and it supports the channel. Another way you can support the channel, if you would rather not pay money, which is totally understandable, there's a link in the description for a Discord server from ShowZ, which is an overseas site that does a lot of mostly third-party and knockoff Transformer sales. Really decent pricing, cheap shipping, usually free shipping to the US. Good turnaround time, great customer service, and if you join the Discord using the link in the description, it earns me about like 50 cents worth of store credit, which can eventually add up to go towards more stuff that I can make videos on. So that is another option for supporting the channel, but with all of that out of the way, it's time to talk about RiD Warrior Class Skywarp. As I've had this guy for a fair bit, like I want to say more than a year now, and this is a really cool and interesting take on Seekers. I really do like this guy, and I kind of prefer him in these colors. Like I think like there's definitely a Starscream. I don't know if they did a Thundercracker. I don't think they did, but I like the Skywarp colors for this mold at least. And I'm not super partial to one Seeker versus the other. Most of the time, it just depends on what's available, and like I feel like some color schemes suit other aesthetics better. So yeah, but this looks very cool. I think this jet design is pretty neat too. I like the forward swept wings, and I really appreciate how the way it transforms, it actually shifts the torso mass down to give it this extremely long cockpit and nose cone section, which I just think looks cool. No idea how aerodynamic this would actually be, but I still think it looks neat, and it comes together really well. It's a little gappy from certain angles, but it's totally fine. And from the underside, it's like, yeah, there's some stuff going on down here, but it hides a lot of the robot junk pretty well. And I also think it's cool how what become the robot's shoulders actually line up with the wings, so when you're looking at it from the top, you don't really see them. And from the front, it makes it look like the wings are way too thick, but it's still cool. I love the design. I love the multi-wing design. It's like the, again, forward swept wings, but like the forward swept tail wings as well, and like tail fins. It's just a cool looking ship. Plane. Jet, whatever. I do like this. And it does something interesting in robot mode, which I'll talk about more when we get there, that I really wish they did with more Seekers. Now, this guy does not have wheels to speak of, so no rolling, but does have this little nub on the front to act as sort of like a landing strut, so he can sit just fine on a desk, not like wobble around or anything like that, unless you like push down on him. So that's good. Again, the color scheme I think works really nice here. It's very simple in terms of paint, at least in jet mode. You've got like a little bit of purple on the legs. You've got what I'm pretty sure are actually tampagraphs on the wings. I don't think this is paint. I think it's just one big wing-shaped tampagraph. But then like this yellow for the cockpit, I really like this. That yellow on black is so nice. The yellow is a little bit like could have been applied a little bit more even, a little bit thicker in a few places, but it still stands out and contrasts against the black really nicely. And again, like underneath, it does a pretty decent job of hiding the robot. So I like this. It's a different design. It's still, I think, due to both the colors and the obvious Decepticon logo, it's still it's identifiable as a Seeker. But it's different. I like different. I think I've mentioned that more than a few times. So here are, I think I'm gonna have to move this back a little bit further to get everyone in the shot. There we go. But here we've got Skywarp with Artfire and Rotor Storm and Samus and Burnout. And you can see that, it's a warrior class figure, but it's roughly deluxe-ish size. Definitely not as compacted and dense looking as Burnout, but spreads out more. So there's that. All right, let's get all of you out of here. I actually have my lap to myself today. Astrid is sleeping on the cat tower, so I'm not being hindered by a feline at the moment. It's great. And a little bit more purple for you all. Here is Skywarp with the duck tank. Alright, transformation time, and this is a really interesting transformation. I'm gonna take the little guns off the wings first. Unfortunately, I wish they could peg in a little bit different spot, because on the wingtips just seems a little bit odd to me. But it works. But unpeg these, and first we are going to disconnect the wings from what will become the legs. So unplug those and swing them back, like so. Now we can unplug what will become the forearms from this bit right here. It's just this slot right above the fingers that pegs in right there. So bring that out, flip out the hand, and rotate it around so it's facing forward. Unplug, rotate, flip out hand. All right. Now, I'm going to unplug this section here. It actually tabs in here, and this vent section slides into this little bit on the side as well. So unplug that on both sides, and then these come up and click back into place to form the torso. And that is a really cool transformation trick. It's very simple, but I really like how that completely reshapes what's going on here. And now we can unplug this whole assembly from the backs of the legs. You can see there's the tab slots there, and they tab in over these. Bring that up. I'm gonna unplug the legs. You don't have to, but I prefer to unplug the legs first, and then accordion all of this out and push that in place into the leg and pull down the foot. And from this side, you can see you can pull down the foot and then accordion this up, and it will this will peg into this little bit there, and it pretty much keeps the knee in place. I haven't had any problems with it coming out. And that's the legs. Very simple, but very effective. And again, you pretty much got a robot now. And I love how this reshapes and compacts into the jet mode. It's such an interesting way of doing it. And now we're going to angle this back a little bit to just give a little bit more room here. Open up the nose cone and fold it back. And this will you want to get the nose through the struts here, bring that down, and it will peg into this tab back here. There's this slot up here. So bring that in, peg it in, and now this whole assembly comes up and clicks over the back of the cockpit section. And then the wings fold down like that. And there we've got Skywarp, but we also have to give him null rays or whatever these are, and those just plug into his forearms. And yeah, normally I do the accessories after we cover articulation, but I feel like for the Seekers, they're kind of necessary. So there we've got RiD Skywarp, and this is a really interesting design. I really like this. You can flare out the wings if you want, but I really like how they tuck behind the body and form kind of like a cape, because it's something different. It's something we don't really see with Seekers. And I like that. It's really cool. It's the thing that really sold me on this design. But the transformation itself is also really cool. And there's more going on here now because you've got more color breakup. The purples and blacks are separated a little bit better. And also now you've got these grays that are coming into it for like the waist and part of the torso. You still get a little bit of the cockpit preserved for the chest to really give it that signature Seeker look. There are the pylons over the shoulders that are now visible, because those were kind of tucked around underneath. And yeah, it's just a really cool, like I really like how this design is evocative of a classic Seeker in a lot of ways, but still totally does its own thing. Like the fact that you've got these enormous spiky shoulder pads, which are just kind of fun. Like they didn't have to be that pronounced. There's no reason for it other than style, and I love that. And also the head is, well, we'll look at the head in more detail a bit, but like the head is also not, like it's sort of the typical Seeker design, but also not exactly. So I just think that's really cool. And again, like the chest vents and stuff, it really looks the part, but does things differently. And I cannot overstate how much I appreciate that. Now from the back, it's a little bit messy. I mean, the backpack cleans up really nice. Like that's pretty nicely tucked up against the back. It's just more like you've got some obvious like hollow-ish plastic in the backs of the wings, which is fine considering this is like a warrior class RiD toy. The backs of the legs also hollow, but given how it transforms, and again, the fact that it's a warrior class figure, I think it's fine. It is not a problem. It's just something to note, I guess. But yeah, I think this guy's really cool. It's a really neat design. And again, I love how they did the wings and have them fold along the back. That's just neat. Really, my only gripe in terms of the robot mode aesthetic is I wish the null rays were a different color. Like, it would have been cool if these were black. Or even gray, just something other than purple, because when they're purple, they blend into the forearms a little too much. Like they're obviously not the forearms, but just color-wise, I just really wish they had done something else with these. And unfortunately, as far as I know, as of this recording, there are no Toy Hacks repro labels for this guy, so this is what we got. And it's fine, but you know, it would be cool if we eventually got some stickers for him. I don't think we will, because the series has been kind of over and done with for quite a few years, so I don't think we're going to be going back to it at this point. But for what he is still really cool. Now, the head is, as I said, it's like a classic Seeker design, but also a little bit different. Like, the shape is kind of still there. You've got the little exhaust vent flare-outs on the side, the kind of vaguely similar head shape up top, but it's kind of stretched out and elongated vertically. And he also has an enormous chin, which is fine. But yeah, I like how it still evokes a more typical Seeker look while still doing its own thing for the aesthetic. And paint-wise, it looks pretty good. It's, you know, the black plastic with this nice semi-metallic purple, or actually metallic purple stripe going, all the way along the top to the front. And the silver face, red eyes. It looks good. I think the expression is fine. He looks angry, which is fitting. But I don't know. Maybe they could have done a little bit more with that expression, perhaps. As for articulation, the head is on a swivel, so you can look left and right, but it kind of stops when you get to this point, so you can't look any further in either direction than that. It's because of this collar going up around the neck, which is kind of hard to spot, but the chin bumps into that. And also, I think the collar is pretty cool, too. The arms can theoretically do a full 360, but the wings get in the way. But if you bring the arm out, you can, and like move the wings a little bit, you can still do a full 360. The arms can go in and out. If the null rays aren't in the way, you can go out to pretty much 90. You can go in, actually a lot more than, well, that's inappropriate. A lot more than just straight up and down. There's the ball-jointed elbow, which both gives you slightly, well, more than 90 degrees of bend, but also acts as a bicep swivel. You don't get wrist rotation, but due to the transformation, you can angle it down, which would be cool if you had any kind of like melee weapons with this guy, but you don't. There is no waist swivel, which I think is understandable given everything going on back here. The hips are on ball joints, so they can go forward to 90, back to 90, though the wings will get in the way, but you can move them. Out is limited, so not super, I want to say maybe 45 out, but it's fine. You also get a dedicated thigh swivel, the ball cup for the hips. The ball cup for the hips is actually a separate joint, so that thigh swivel is built in, which is cool. I like that. And the knees, despite the transformation, the knees only bend ever so slightly more than 90 degrees because the joint itself is shaped so that it just kind of stops bending when you get to that point. You can disconnect the knee if you want to bend it further, but then it kind of looks weird and you get this gap there, and I don't think it's necessarily worth it. I mean, you can do like a subtle, less extreme bend to get past 90, but I think 90 is adequate, especially, again, considering this is a warrior class RiD toy. And the feet, you don't get ankle tilts, but they are kind of on a slight angle, and you can wiggle the feet forward and backward. My feet, the forward and backward motion, were a little bit loose for my liking, so I ended up tightening those, but he was standing just fine. It's just, this helps to keep him a little bit more stable. I don't feel like I have to constantly readjust his stance. So that is that for Skywarp. Now, and bring in some more of our size comparisons, and as I've said multiple times, he is a warrior class RiD figure, so he is basically a deluxe size. And depending on which deluxe you're comparing him to, could be considered average, could be considered small, but there he is with the usual crew. You can see he's just a little bit taller than Burnout, so there's that, but he's also slimmer than Burnout, because I guess he's a Seeker and Burnout is a hatchback based on Skids. I don't know. I know Skids is actually not typically a big, bulky character, but the Legacy Skids mold is definitely a little bit on the bulky side. And just for the heck of it, let's bring in another RiD warrior class figure, that is Fracture. And after years, literal years, not figurative literal years of wanting to get repro labels for Fracture, I finally did it. And didn't use the whole set because a lot of the details that that set adds for Fracture are already on the Takara version, because that's what this is. This is Transformers Adventure Fracture, but it is the RiD Warrior mold, so same difference. But, more paint, more detailing and stuff. So yeah, I didn't use the full complement of stickers, but there are some on there, and I do think they add just a little bit more to them. So I'm still glad I got the set, especially because I got it on sale. But yeah, this is how they measure up, and Skywarp is just, I want to say, a tiny bit taller than Fracture. But they're also both suitably kind of slender purple fellows. And for those who are curious, here he is with Earthspark Deluxe Megatron. I think I mistakenly said that he was a Warrior Megatron in both the video for this guy and the title, but yeah, Deluxe class Megatron. And he is taller than Earthspark Megatron, but this Megatron is, a little bit short, because the Earthspark Deluxes aren't huge figures. But aesthetically, they're not that far off. I hadn't really paid that much attention, put them next to each other before, but yeah, RiD and Earthspark, style-wise, actually kind of work together. Anyway, that is Megatron, and lastly, there is Skywarp with the Duck Tank. And that is it for RiD Robots in Disguise 2015 Skywarp, Warrior Class Skywarp. I'm pretty much echoing stuff that a lot of other people have said at this point, but this is a really cool figure. It does some really interesting things. It changes up the formula both in terms of look and in engineering, and I really appreciate that. I think it is a success in what it was trying to do. It could definitely do with a little bit more articulation, but it's, you know, the RiD warrior class stuff was more on the simpler side. As I mentioned in the last video, they did not get a bunch of hits in RiD 2015, in the toy line for RiD 2015, but the stuff that hits hard, and like this is an example of that too. I wouldn't put it quite on the same tier as RiD Megatronus, because that figure is just kind of in its own league in terms of other RiD toys, but this is a really solid figure all on its own, and I would certainly recommend the mold to anyone who's looking for seekers of any kind that are maybe a little different from the average, you know, G1 stuff we see over and over again. But that's going to do it on my thoughts on this particular Skywarp. What do you all think of this figure? Whatever your thoughts may be, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And, even now, it's been so many videos. My new outro is just me saying I don't have an outro at this point. So, thanks again to all of my Patreons. All of my Patreons. I hate when people say that. All of my patrons, because they're actually patrons, not Patreons. And see you all in the next one.